Our moderator, please. Latif. This man harasses us when he gets hold of us. Please.
Thank you, sir. Your Excellency, when you took the oath of office, the first oath of office that you took was the oath of affirmation of allegiance, in which you said, I may remind you, and I'll use the names, please allow me to use your name. I, William Samoei Ruto, in full realization of the high calling I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya, do swear that I'll be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya, that I'll obey, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of Kenya as by law established and all other laws of the Republic, and that I'll protect and uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya. Our conversation this afternoon, Your Excellency, with your permission, with the honorable panelists, I just wanted to make it very short. It's that accountability. Accountability for these high offices. At the end of this, the program has you coming to make your closing remarks. So we'll not even do the closing remarks. We'll just do quick accountability for the person and the office that you hold. What have you done to uphold the Constitution? Your Excellency, you swore to obey, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of Kenya. Are you aware, sir, that your cabinet is unconstitutional?
Thank you very much, Eric. I am fully aware that the court has made a determination and given me time to realizing that that is work in progress to be able to do what I need to do. But in that context, let me speak to my oath of office in a broader context, and to speak to this day, Katiba Day. And as I have said in my earlier statement, this is not just a ritual. This is a time for us to reflect and account for what we have done in 16 years with respect to the tenets, the principles, the mandate, and the requirement of our Constitution. And putting that in the context of my oath of office and being accountable for that oath of office, and putting it in the context of what again I said earlier in terms of how do we account for the authority that we exercise and whether that is making impact on the people of Kenya, especially on what you said, whether more and more citizens are closer to the rights that the Constitution envisaged. And I will say the following, that by way of accountability, when we seek a mandate like the way I did, I made commitments to the people of Kenya. And those commitments were not just statements. They were not just slogans. They were commitments that ultimately I must be held account, because that is what the Constitution demands of me as president. And I would want to put it in this context. Number one, I made commitments about how to transform the nation and what I need to do. And I made proposals to the people of Kenya that this is how I intend to stabilize the economy. This is how I intend to make sure that we have access to health getting to the majority of citizens. This is how I intend to work on making sure that there is decent housing as it's required by the Constitution. This is how education that is provided for as an obligation to government in the Constitution, this is what we are going to do. This is how we are going to work on access to water and all the other requirements of the Constitution. And I can confidently tell the nation today that subsequent to my election and my commitment that I will be faithful to the Constitution, we have done whatever we needed to do, difficult as it may have been, to stabilize our economy. Today, our economy is the 6th largest economy in Africa. Our interest rates have come down. Our exchange rates have come down and stabilized. Our inflation has come down and stabilized. And our sovereign debt position is way different from what it was. We did not only, avoid the default. We've gone ahead to create a much more stable economy.
Allow me to bring you back to my question.
Just let me, so that I don't lose my trend of thought.
Okay.
Let me say that often I have been asked, you committed yourself that you will reduce on debt and on borrowing. And I want to answer that question in this forum because prudent management of public resources is part of accountability, is part of accounting by leaders. Sometimes we reduce accountability to just be about, corruption and those other things, which are fundamental. But the worst form of corruption is to make a commitment that you have no intention of keeping.
True.
And so when I made a commitment that we are going to think of how to develop our country without burdening ourselves with too much borrowing or debt, and sometimes disproportionately disadvantaging generations that come after us.
Right.
I can say on this podium today, if you look at where we were in terms of debt and where we are today, we have significantly, by multiples, reduced the rate of acquisition of debt in our country. Let me give you an example. When Moi left office, we had a sovereign debt of 630 billion. That is what Kibaki inherited. In 10 years, Kibaki took that sovereign debt to 1.8 trillion. That is 3 times, by a multiple of 3, roughly. When my brother, President Uhuru, left office in 2022, he left behind a debt of 10.3 trillion. It had grown by 5 times, 500% in 10 years. In my 5 years, that debt has grown from 10.3 trillion to 13 trillion. In 5 years, that debt has not grown by multiples. It has grown by 27%. And therefore, the commitment I made that while we will continue to invest and develop our country, we will do it in such a manner that we reduce on borrowing, we reduce on debt, and we grow our economy sustainably. So I'm just giving an example of how accountable one must be.
So back to my question, sir.
I will come to your question. Just allow me to set the context.
I just want to phrase it again.
Yes.
So that we don't lose track of what we are saying. And you've used the words that I do not want to repeat, but let me just use them. Worst form of commitment, of corruption, is making commitments that you do not keep.
Yes.
You made a commitment in your gender charter to have a 50% representation of each gender in your cabinet. Today, your cabinet is unconstitutionally composed of the requirement not more than 2/3 of the same gender. I just want to seek, because the issue here is constitutional accountability, Your Excellency.
Correct.
So in that regard, because this sends a strong signal to the rest of the Republic, what is your answer to that? Why is the cabinet unconstitutional? What are you going to do about it? There is a court order that has not been vacated by any other court that has given you until the 28th of October to reconstitute your cabinet.
Correct. Precisely what I'm telling you is, in the context of commitments that you make, you may not necessarily get 100%, but you can get 80%. In your estimation, have you passed that exam or did you not pass? If the commitments you made, you have achieved 80%. There are some commitments that are work in progress. But what I was trying to point to you is that of the commitments I made to the people of Kenya, commitments on the economy, commitments on education, commitments on agriculture, commitments on housing, commitments on making sure we control our debt, commitments on making sure that we have universal health coverage, I can confidently say we are at 80%. That does not mean we have discharged every commitment. There are commitments that are outstanding. Among them is that one on making sure that we respect the 2/3 gender principle.
Will you reconstitute the cabinet?
It is, that's a much more simpler thing to say.
Okay, let me just...
But let me just, we are speaking in context.
Yes.
Don't make it simplistic.
I am not, sir.
Because, there are many people who are telling me, for example, I heard from exactly what you are saying, you must get 100% for you to have passed. I don't think that is fair to say, for you to have passed, you must get 100%. I think what we are saying is, have we, in the collective assessment of the people of Kenya,
yes,
have we kept our part of the bargain substantively? You remember I used the words progressively in my statement several times.
Yes.
Have we made progress progressively? Yes, we have done. Have we done 100%? No, we have not got 100%. Some of it, as was said here by leaders, is work in progress. And its attainment may not happen today. Just the same way, the court has ruled that Parliament is unconstitutional because of the 2/3 gender rule.
Yes.
That determination was made by court, I think, almost 5 years ago, 6 years ago, to be exact. But it's work in progress, I did make proposals myself to Parliament on how we could attain the 2/3 gender rule. It is still work in progress in Parliament. And I think progressively, without being too aggressive against ourselves, that is work in progress.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. You occupy a very high office, head of state and government. Head of state means that you are a symbol of this republic. And I want to speak to you from that level. Looking back, because you have participated in this constitution journey, before Bomas, into Bomas, out of Bomas, into Naivasha, into Parliament, into the referendum, into implementing it as the first deputy president under this constitution and the second president under this constitution. So far, what are the gains? Because we've talked about the gains that we have, and we can all acknowledge the gains that we have, and you reflected on them in your opening remarks. What are these things that we are yet to realize, we the people? And how can we get there? What do we need to do to get there, to realize the aspirations and the great dreams of our Constitution?
Thank you very much, Eric. And because I don't intend to make any further remarks, including what was listed as closing remarks, I will just finalize on my statement now, so that we can bring this occasion to a close. First, let me say the following as I come to answer what you have asked me. That I'm very proud that we are able to sit down in the manner in which we have done and ask ourselves very candidly, very pointed, accountability questions from what you have asked me about the matter of cabinet, to members of parliament on the letters, to Madam Chief Justice here. It just goes a long way in, putting in context the great country that we have, that we can stomach any inquiry into what we are doing as citizens and as leaders. The fact that, this occasion, the Katiba Day, when I thought about it, and I thought about this in the context of what you have said, I participated in Bomas, I participated in Naivasha. There was a Kilifi draft. I was the first deputy president under this constitution. And today I have the privilege to be the second president under this constitution. There is a journey that we have traveled as a country. And as head of state of this country today, I am very proud that this Katiba Day is not just another occasion. It's not just another celebration. It is a place where we call ourselves and ask ourselves difficult questions. Have we done what the Constitution expected of us? And why I am very proud about this moment is because I have managed to bring the country to a place where we can candidly ask ourselves questions. Last week, I was here in KICC on one of our primary subjects, that is universal health coverage. And I spent 5 hours the first day, 5 hours the second day, answering citizens, having an engagement with citizens. As president, that does not happen in ordinary circumstances. No other president has done what I have done. I have put myself at a place where I can be questioned and taken questions and answered. So I think this is a good place for us as a country, number one. Number two, we have made very good progress. As somebody who worked under the old constitution and the new constitution, I can proudly say, as others have said here, Mutava Mushimi, all the other good people, including Abdikadir and all the other people, that we have made progress. Of course, we could have done better, but that does not discount the progress that we have made. In different spaces, devolution, for example, which is probably the biggest gain that this constitution brought. There are many arguments as to whether devolution has worked or has it not worked. From where I sit, I think we were right to have devolution. Devolution has served this nation. Could it have been better? Yes. Are there challenges? Yes. But that does not discount what devolution has done to our country. Specifically, for example, the biggest subject, health. I see many people trying to argue that maybe health should be reverted to national government. I am completely opposed. I think health is in the right place in county governments. Why do I say that? If you look at delivery of health, there are counties where we had only one doctor. Example, Wajir here. Today, there are 70. There are many more health workers. Supervision has been devolved from the national government to the county. County workforce, health professionals are held to account. In the past, there used to be doctors who never reported to their stations for 10 years and nobody knew. That is no longer possible. The county governments have appropriated that space properly. And so, have they done many other things better than was the case in the old system? Let me also say, having served as the first chairperson of the Intergovernmental Budget and IBEC, that we started off with a lot of territorial fight between the national government and the county government. And rightfully so, because there was still a hangover by the national government to try and control counties. And then there was also, a bit of that, I must admit. But progressively, we have come to appreciate that there are roles assigned to counties, there are responsibilities and mandate assigned to the national government. And that way, we have found a way of living together. In fact, I have had a wonderful 4 years working with county governments. Maybe because I had the benefit of what happened in the last 10 years. And we have signed, as Abdullahi has said, many intergovernmental participation agreements. We have done, for example, the registration of farmers, which was a very big thing. Now we have a register of all farmers. It was a joint project between national government and county governments. We have community health promoters. Today, we pay community health promoters jointly. The community health promoters are doing a fantastic job. Today, we have signed an intergovernmental partnership agreement on matters health. I would have chosen, for example, to say health is a devolved function and I should have nothing to do with it. But we sat down with counties and we said there is a role where national government can support counties in delivery of a mandate that is assigned to counties, and that is purely constitutional. The Constitution, provides for that kind of mechanism. And we use that mechanism to improve health outcomes. Today, we have more citizens registered on social health. Today we have more citizens treated. Today we have better delivery of equipment. We signed a partnership agreement with counties. Today they get equipment that they don't have to pay for because of the agreement we have signed, and they are using those equipments to deliver health and get paid for by SHA. So I can say confidently that counties are better placed when there is a better relationship between the counties and the national government. That is not to say there are no challenges. Yes, there are challenges here and there, but continuously we keep resolving those challenges. Let me give you one challenge, for example. On matters to do with housing, you know, there was a challenge on whether housing is completely devolved or there is a role for national government. And we managed to resolve it, you know, by making sure that we established under the housing fund a place where the housing fund has representation from the national government and the county government, and it made it easier for us to make steps to go forward. Let me leave that there. And having said that, I can say with confidence that our decision as a people, as a nation, to have counties in place was the right decision. But I hear what Mutava Mushemi is saying. You know, that is it too expensive? Can something be done about it? That is a conversation Kenyans can have, you know, on how do we make them much more effective? You know, that is, or the size of parliament for that matter. That is a conversation we can have as a nation. Let me come to what was said by my elder sister here, the Madam Chief Justice. I think if there is one very progressive area that we can confidently say as a nation that we did very well under this constitution, is our judiciary. I think the judiciary today has maybe more latitude than they need, if I may say that. I think we overgave ourselves the space around judiciary, because they can literally do anything, you know, which is possibly a good thing, so that they can limit the power of government. They can also interpret legislation in this or the other way. But what I can say about the judiciary is that even as we celebrate the place of any citizen being able to go to court and challenge everything, there is always the argument that I want to make, and I have brought it up with the Chief Justice. For example, we go to the people and we tell the people housing is a mandate, a command under Article 43 for government to provide adequate, dignified housing. You go to the public with a manifesto, you tell the people how that right is going to be realized, and the people give you the mandate. 7-8 million people, Kenyans, vote, and they say, proceed. And then one person, possibly the name that comes into mind is the one you know, goes to court and stops the whole process, you know? Now, the question you ask yourself is, what is the place of this one person in the context of the 8 million who voted for this right? And secondly, this right is in the Constitution. So that's the question, again, that maybe the judiciary, on their own wisdom, may want to think about balancing the right of every citizen to challenge whatever is being done as against the right of others who believe that that right should be achieved. And also the right of government to live up to the constitutional demand for them, for citizens, to have decent housing. You know? So this is, again, a place where we possibly may want to have a conversation around. I don't think it amounts to changing the Constitution. I think it is by way of practice, and all of us looking at what are the possibilities. Because, and I will come to this later, in terms of my perspective as to what areas haven't we, I will come to answer that question. But having said that, I think I have had a wonderful relationship with the judiciary under my administration. They have cornered me in many places. They have brought down some of the things I wanted to do. But in some cases, they have made very useful proposals. You know, they have told us, for example, go and change the law so that it's not just those who are salaried who pay for housing, let all others pay. Very, very progressive, you know. They have also told us in other areas, maybe change the law so that you do this. So again, I cannot wholesome say they have done something that has stopped us. They've, in very many cases, enriched our, you know, proposal on how to get things done. But to the words of the Chief Justice here, and she has said, and rightfully so, that there is a budget issue, which is an issue, again, we must have a conversation as citizens. Should we pay taxes? Should we not? Should we borrow more money to do what we have to do? Or how do we borrow responsibly? So this is, again, another conversation, because the bottom line of all this thing about budget is taxes. Yes. I mean, we must have a candid conversation. Today, there is a big argument that Kenyans are overtaxed. We need to have a conversation. Is it based on empirical evidence? To my reflection, we are at 14, maybe 15%. Our taxes are 15% of GDP. The highest country, France, is 45% of GDP. They pay 45% of GDP. We pay 15%. South Africa pays 25% of GDP. So is the argument that we are overtaxing ourselves right, or is it not? And is it possible for us to provide for every service that we need without thinking of where we are going to raise the revenue for us to do that? This is, again, another conversation that speaks to what Mutaba Mushimi was saying as to affordability of government. But to my defense, I can say here that we have increased the budget for the judiciary from 18 billion when I came into office to 30 billion today. We have almost doubled the budget. That's the correct position. Under my administration, I think, together with the Judicial Service Commission, we have hired the highest number of judges any administration has hired. In my 4 short years, I think, Madam Chief Justice, I think you, myself, and your JSC has hired close to 100 judges. So we have made a contribution. Maybe we have not reached where we should. I sympathize that the building at the judiciary is not in very good shape. But I don't know whether you really want to renovate, because you have to be ready for the consequences of renovation. The audit out there is very vicious. You know, you don't know how much shit I've gone through on lectures on whether it was the right thing to renovate a State House. I've tried to make argument that this place was leaking. This is the address of the people of Kenya, any citizen, but I don't know whether I've succeeded. So as you think about renovating and rebuilding judiciary, I will warn you that there will be consequences for that. But I guess you have the mettle for it. And I think with the new facility that we have negotiated with yourselves and the World Bank, we now have a facility of about 20 billion shillings to be able to rethink about how we can empower the judiciary to do more. I think we have done a couple of other things, including looking at the retirement benefits of judicial officers, their transport, and many other things, which I don't want to say. But I think we have tried to make a contribution in that direction. Let me say finally that from where I sit, maybe I should say from where I stand. The whole space around accountability is a space that I think we need more work. To your question now, Latif, the whole space around accountability is a place we need to do more work. Why do I say so? We have had arguments on who needs to prosecute. We have had issues raised by citizens on why the DPP enters, withdraws cases. We've had issues, what the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption has said here, on prosecutorial powers to be given to the EACC, the delay in the processes. There are too many processes that ultimately that becomes a challenge. I think those are very valid. You know, even from where I sit, these are very valid proposals that we must internalize and do something about. But having said that, there is more that we can also do by way of prevention. And I remember making this statement before the last election. I said, in my administration, there will be no money to steal. And I meant it. And how have we stopped or prevented loss of public resources? Number one is what was said here by somebody, digitization. Just by digitizing government services and payment, we have significantly reduced transactions in cash that end up being areas of corruption. Today, I can confidently say we have eliminated paying for government services using cash. And this is to enhance accountability, traceability, and who pays what. We had 1,000 plus government pay bills, all in shady places. Today we have one. And the Treasury can see all government payments and where it is going. Number two, we have implemented what we call Treasury Single Account. Treasury Single Account enables government to see how much money we have in which places and how much idle money there is in government. We used to go to borrow using the instruments that we have, and most of the time we borrowed money which we had, you know? And sometimes we went to the market to borrow our own money. And it was not very intelligent. I don't want to say it was foolish. So we have eliminated that, and John Buddy is here, and we have made huge savings just by making sure that we have all our money with our visibility. Number three, and by the way, this single treasury account was a conversation that was there for almost 15 years, but there was no courage to implement it because there were people benefiting from these dark places. Number 3, we have implemented what we call electronic EGP, electronic government, electronic procurement. We've made the whole procurement of government services transparent. John Buddy was telling me an item, say for example a pen, procured by government on 17th floor was different price procured by another ministry on 10th floor. That is no longer possible because we have standardized procurement. We know how much it costs, and every government entity pays the same for the same service or for the same commodities or other procurement products. Again, we are possibly saving up to 10% of all our procurement just by making e-procurement possible. I can tell you, we've gone through hell trying to implement this. The amount of requests we've been asked to excuse, or our issues are very urgent, or these issues are very sensitive, or these issues. But I want to thank John Buddy, he has said no. And we are forcing everybody to go through the mill. We've also done one thing, which Abdikadir will tell you how difficult it is to do. The issue of the government-owned enterprises law. This man, Abdikadir, came with it, I think 15 years ago, 13 years ago. But it was not possible to implement it. Because what did it say? It set the bar for the people who are appointed into boards of government agencies. It actually said that we need to advertise for those positions. And it was very difficult politically, to do it. Because you go into an election with many friends, partners, people who have supported you, people who have gone to the trenches with you, you win an election, and then they are there. You have to do something about them. And politically, you can't just wish them away because they will make demands and say, my friend, you wouldn't be there if it was not for us. Legitimately so. But what have you done now? We went to Parliament, and I want to say this about Parliament. I know there are many accusations that Parliament has gone through, that they are a rubber stamp for the executive. I don't know, they are not holding government to account. If there was a difficult bill to pass, and I must give credit to the 13th Parliament, they passed it. It is the government-owned enterprises law. Literally saying that those people passing the bill will not qualify to be appointed into parastatals when they are not sitting in Parliament. You know how, all these politics are very slippery place. You are in today, you can be out tomorrow. So, but I want to credit the 13th Parliament. They passed this law. I signed it into law. And today, many of my friends who I had appointed to boards in Kengen, in Kenya Airports Authority, in Kenya, I don't know where, Kenya Pipeline, and many other places, they have had to exit. Because now the law says those who participated in the last election cannot be board members. I have lost a few friends, but it comes with what it is. And why are we doing this? We want to, as much as possible, professionalize the running of government agencies and to depoliticize those boards. And again, I must say that has worked in a very significant way. And then finally, we have, and I'm talking to accountability, we have also, number 5, we passed the conflict of interest bill into law. Again, very many members of parliament, members of Senate are very unhappy about this bill because it literally says members of their families cannot participate in procurement or supply of goods and services to government. Again, it was to establish a distance between those who wield authority or power, whether they are sitting in parliament or they are sitting in the executive. I don't know whether we extended to the judiciary, I don't think we did, cannot participate because they have the propensity to influence those contracts this way or the other. Again, I can confidently tell the country we passed that law. And we are progressively, pushing corruption to the limits, even as we do the other things. You remember it was said here earlier, what about the ethics part? What other, apart from prosecution and all this, are there other things being done to deal with corruption? This is part of it. And we've worked with criminal justice system to work on this. And then allow me to say two final things, which, speaking to what the other panelists have said, I agree entirely with the assessment of Mutava Mushimi on the subject of us having and what we are doing about poor people in our country. There is a message that Mutava Mushimi is saying, that those of us in positions of responsibility, myself and these great people and all of you seated here, which we cannot lose focus on. What are we doing about equity? How are we working to make sure that every citizen has meaning in Kenya? It's okay, for us to defend our salaries, for us to demonstrate, ask for more salaries, but what about the people who have no salary? What about the people who have no jobs? What about the poor people? This is something that we must pay attention to. There are some people, and I'm afraid to say this, that believe that they are citizens who are born to be poor. I think that is tragic. Because I hear arguments when I was pushing for the housing levy. And many people were telling me, how is it our business to make sure the people living in slums who have no decent dwelling places, how is it our business to assist them to get decent housing? It's a very, reasonable question, but looking at it from the other side is very callous. I mean, it shows how insensitive we are, that we have people who live in slums, that it doesn't concern you that there is a citizen who uses a flying toilet. It doesn't concern, you're not bothered. I mean, you really have to have a heart of stone not to think about fellow citizens who have to pay to use a toilet. I mean, it is something that must concern us. And that is, I think, what my good brother there was saying. Or a citizen who decides to stay at home, they are sick, but they prefer to stay at home and die because they have no means of getting medical treatment. I think that is something that should concern us. And as a result, it takes me to the place where we've not done very well. We've done very well with what Abdikadir said, political rights. We are a robustly democratic country. We vote whoever we want. We can picket, we can demonstrate, we can do whatever, literally, whatever we want. That we have done very well, and we must credit ourselves for it. But there is the other side of it. What have we done to make sure that every child will go to school? Everybody has medical attention. We have decent housing. We have eliminated hunger. And we have done all the other constitutional commands. That is the place that we haven't done very well. And that is where we must focus going into the future. And that is why I am inviting all of us to have a national conversation, on the future of Kenya, a development charter for ourselves, so that we can enjoy our democratic rights, but also make sure that every citizen lives a dignified life. I think these are the two, sides of what we must achieve. And I say this with a lot of humility, that it's upon us, to do whatever it is that we can to make sure that we deliver on these two commitments. Let me say this. Our right to choose, our democratic right to choose, must be exercised in choosing what is best for everybody, or what is best for us. We should be able to make the best choices for Kenya. And again, let me paraphrase what Abdikadir said. If you choose a thief and expect that they will not steal from you, you are not being intelligent. If you choose somebody who is incompetent and expect them to deliver on anything, then you are not being serious. If you choose a person who has no vision, who has no plan, who has no agenda, and expect them to take your country anywhere, then you are not being serious. I think these are the choices that are on the table for us. And finally, I have spoken for too long. Why I like this meeting, and it is good that we are talking about our constitution in a forum like this, that intellectuals are present, is that Mutava Mushimi can say some of the things politicians cannot say. And Abdikadir can say some of the things politicians cannot say. And my good bishop can also say some of the things that are difficult for politicians to say. But they must be said. So this is a good forum for us to engage without defending ourselves that much. And finally, I think we need to do more. We have gaps in matters to do with our gender equity. I think we can do something about the 2/3 gender rule. And I think I can do something about making the, not just the 2/3 gender rule, but also the constitutionality of our cabinet. I think that is a space that even me, I have some homework to do on matters to do with gender and all that. If I was given an opportunity, I would try to mitigate my situation by saying, at least I have the first ever Attorney General who is a woman, whom I have appointed. And I can also try and mitigate my case by saying, by appointment, maybe the cabinet does not meet the 2/3 gender rule, but by operation, it does. Because I not only have the AG, but also the Secretary to Cabinet sitting in my cabinet. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. So I want to say to all of us This is a very good conversation, Madam Chief Justice, I think. And Abdullahi, my good friend from the Council of Governors and the Houses of Parliament, I want to say to all of us, thank you very much. I think this is time we have spent very well. And thank you, Eric, for provoking us. Asante sana.